Hello everyone and welcome again to another one of our NeuroMaker tutorials. My name is Andrew and today we are going to focus on setting up our virtual environment so that we have all of the virtual tools that we need to complete the NeuroMaker BCI curriculum. So a large part of what we're going to be doing in our curriculum is making sure that we have all of the data science and programming tools so that we can properly conduct signal processing and work with the data that we're given from our EEG hardware. So what we're going to do in our lesson one, as you can see, I have my classroom portal open, but at the time that you view this, we might have changed some things around, but a lot of the necessary pieces will be in here. Lesson two is going to be all about making sure students have everything they need to get started in this environment. So I'm going to walk through how we can set up Anaconda, which is going to give us all of the programming packages we need to conduct all of the exercises inside of our NeuroMaker BCI curriculum. So if you follow along with me, I'll be more than happy to show you how we can do that. So in this case, under our materials for our program environment setup instructions, we have a Google Doc which is going to guide us through how we can do this. But just to give a little bit of context before we jump in here, Anaconda is going to be a way that we organize all of the tools we need to process the data coming from our headband. So introducing students to Anaconda is going to give them a lot of additional pieces that they need to conduct these experiments. And it's the exact same thing that real data scientists use in the real world. So I heavily encourage students to put all this stuff together themselves. You can certainly set this up ahead of time, but I think it's very valuable for people to see how this works. And we have a little bit of extra information here in these different slide backgrounds. So as you can see here, this is how we're going to organize our programming. What you're going to see by the end of this tutorial is how we can easily import new tools that we need without having to work within a lot of other programs. So it's a really powerful tool and it's going to allow us to do some really cool stuff. So the first step, of course, is making sure that we can set it up. So I'm going to go through our setup guide to do that with you all today. So I'm just going to X this out so we can do it together. So what you're going to need to do first is install Anaconda. So you can get the individual edition of this for free. So we are going to do that here. So you can see it right here on their main page. We can go to download. And now we have the choice of which operating system we are using. So you can see this works on Windows, Mac, and Linux. I personally have a Windows device and it's a 64-bit operating system. So I am going to click on this button and you're going to see a download prompt come up. So this is a large tool. So this particular program is about 450 megabytes. It's going to take a little bit of time to download. So I'm going to let this download here. I'm going to keep the video running and I'm probably going to speed ahead. But just during this time, I think this is a good opportunity to explain to students what they're going to be working with. So here are some cheat sheets that we have available within our curriculum that educators can use to explain what students are going to be working with. So as you can see here, Anaconda is what is going to give students a virtual environment. So if students are familiar with Python, they're probably familiar with a lot of the logical operations of how you can develop programs. However, in order to make our lives easier, we don't want students to learn how to create hundreds of lines of code to do things that we can do with much shorter lines of code. So in this case, we can download specific packages, which are going to give students different tools to conduct this kind of programming. So for example, within Anaconda, we can download special packages that will be able to plot certain kinds of data. So anybody who's worked with MATLAB or other kinds of Python data science packages, you might be familiar with these. But what this is going to allow us to do is to be able to create spectrograms. It's going to allow us to plot brainwave data in a way that we can look at this a little bit more clearly and not have to write hundreds of lines of code to do that. Additionally, there's some really cool packages in here that deal specifically with EEG. So for example, we have a PsychoPy package, which we'll be diving into later on in the curriculum, which allows us to use specific tools for neuroscience applications that are really easy to use. And so, for example, we'll be able to look at brainwave data and use functions built into that package so that we don't have to develop all those things ourselves. So it's really, really interesting. And there's lots of other things that we're going to be able to do within this. And once we actually have Anaconda set up, this is going to allow us to download a lot of the other tools that we're going to need to execute these different curriculum pieces. So for example, one of the biggest ones that we're going to be using is Jupyter Notebooks. If you are not familiar with Jupyter Notebooks, it is one of the world's largest openly accessible data sharing program. So actually, learning Jupyter Notebooks is a fabulous way to get students a head start on what they're going to be working on with more complicated data sets in college. So if any students out there are interested in the world of biomedical engineering, which I selfishly hope they are, Jupyter Notebooks are going to give them their head start in being able to collaborate with others on publicly available data. So for example, NASA actually publishes a lot of their data science dumps within Jupyter Notebooks, so that if you want to develop your own pieces of programming within a very interactive, easy to work with other people kind of interface, Jupyter Notebooks will be the right way to go. So actually, most of the engineers on our team that have moved into some of the more biomedical engineering pieces of Python programming actually use Jupyter for a lot of their different applications. So students getting a head start in this are going to have a head start in what they're going to do later on in their careers. And I think it's a great way for students to have a very centralized application piece with programming and specialized data science, in this case, all with EEG, so that they're not just jumping into something like this with some kind of more abstract, oh, we're going to create some kind of a pretend finance application, or maybe we're going to give them some data on storms that happened in the United States from the years 1950 to 2010. That stuff can be a little abstract, but actually within Jupyter Notebooks, what we're going to be able to do is allow students to use their own brainwave data to conduct some really cool experiments. So this would be one way that we can give students a much more targeted approach to how they can use this programming in a way that's a lot more centric to the things that they can control, in this case with even their own body. So that's going to be really neat, and we're going to see some examples of that within our curriculum, and we'll even be able to take a quick look at that today. So thank you for listening to this long introduction to these things while I wait for this file to download. So that's all downloaded here. So I'm going to recheck our guide here. And as you can see, we are down to here. So I'm going to open this up so we can set it up. And we're going to see the screen pop up in just a moment. So I'm going to let that come through. So it's loading. Perfect. So as you can see here, we are welcome to the setup. We're going to click next. We have to agree to some licensing agreements. So we're going to use this, and we're not going to copy it and take credit for what the wonderful Anaconda developers did. Of course, we agree with that. And this is going to be installed for just me. So all students who are going to be executing these programs are going to be doing it on their own device. So we're going to want to install this for just myself. So we don't need admin privileges for this. All right. So we're going to move quite ahead. As you can see here, I'm just going to download this right into the folder that it automatically recommends. I recommend you do this as well. So let's install this. As you can see here, we're going to follow along with our guide, and we can actually uncheck this box. We're actually going to be able to download Python separately within our NeuroMaker BCI pieces. If this is convenient for you, you're more than welcome to click this, but personally you do not need to. And then that's going to install here. Looking good. So we're going to wait for this bar to complete and move ahead to the next stages of our prompts. It's going to be ready in just a moment. And as you can see, this is going to be completed in just a moment, and we do not need to get set up right away. As you can see, moving ahead to some of these next steps, we'll be able to set up some of these other things manually. And once again, I should mention that this is all being done on a Windows computer. The setup process will be very similar if you're doing this on a Mac operating system. However, there might be some slight differences in how we open up this program and some other pieces with that, but that will be pretty obvious within the operation of your program, and we'll we will supply supplementary information so that you can do that on other operating systems as well. But it should be pretty self-explanatory, and so long as you can navigate whatever operating system that you have, you shouldn't have any big difficulty getting this to work on your own device. And as you can see here, once this is set up, we're going to have an app ready on our computer. So all we're going to need to do is just open it up and complete some of the other initialization steps. And we're actually going to see, once this is set up, some of the programs that we're going to be able to operate, along with some of the other packages that we're going to be able to install without having to do too much extra work. So perfect. So now our software is complete. So we're going to click on Next while I double check our guide. All right, thank you for telling me this, Anaconda. So we are going to uncheck these because we're going to enter them manually in just a bit. And now that is all set up on our computer. So if I go over here and I find Anaconda Navigator, you will see it right here. I'm going to open that. So it's going to open up a command line, and I'm going to skip ahead to our interface. And as you can see here, we're going to get to the landing page in just a moment. We're going to see this page in just a moment, and I'm going to click it in there. Perfect. So now we can see that this is our interface. So you can actually do all of this within the command line on your device. So we have this thing called Anaconda Prompt. If you have some students that are a bit more advanced and they want to install this through their prompt on their operating system, they are more than welcome to do that. However, you can actually do everything within the Navigator itself. So that is completely optional depending on what you want to do. So what we're going to do here is we're going to follow along with our guide. So we have our setup here, and we're going to first select environment on the left navigation bar. So as you can see, that's right here. And what this is going to do is it's going to give us a place to store all of these different packages that we want to use. So as I was saying in one of my long-winded explanations just a few minutes ago, each of these different packages is a series of different specialized functions that we can use for some kind of particular case. And Anaconda is specialized a lot in data science. So a lot of these different kinds of packages that you see here can be used to help students with, or really anybody, not just students, complete something they want to do with manipulating data. So that's going to make a lot more sense as we progress through this curriculum. But just for your own purposes, this is going to be something that is going to allow us to have lots of access to new tools that we did not originally have. So it's a great way to organize this too. So now we're going to go back to our setup page. And as you can see, we've clicked on environment here. And now we want to click on create at the bottom. So you'll see here, there's going to be a create button. So we're going to click on that. And now we can create a new environment name. So we already have one environment here, which is the base root, but we're going to want another one so that we can easily use this within the Jupyter Notebooks program that we're going to use in just a moment. So we're going to go, you're going to see a little bit more of that in just a moment. But first, let's go back to our guide to figure out what we want to create. So step 16, we're going to name our new environment. We're going to call it NeuroMaker, just to be consistent with our setup guide. Sounds good. Now let's see what else we have. And now we're going to simply create that. So let's create it. In just a moment, you are going to see our NeuroMaker environment set up right here. So we're going to let that load. And it's going along. And while that's coming along, we're going to skip ahead and see what our next steps are. So if you go within the slide deck that comes with this lesson, you're going to see a number of different packages that we want to install to be able to be ready for all of the things we do with our curriculum. So you can see some of these here, and in just a moment you're going to be able to see how to install those with the drop-down menu. So let's go ahead and see if our environment is ready. Perfect, so it is ready. So you can already see we have some installed programs already. We have the option of looking at what's not installed, what things can be updated, and a lot of other things. So let's go step by step to see what we need to do next. So next, what we need to do is we need to install these different packages. So first, as our instructions say, we're going to choose all first in this drop-down menu. So let's go ahead and do that. So what this is going to do is it's going to list out all of the available packages, and actually we're going to be able to update this so that we can see everything. And there we go. So on step 19, we want to update this. So let's update that index. And this is going to build out a long list of all the available packages that we can download. So things that we don't have, some things that we already have. This might take a bit, as this is going to be collecting a lot of different packages from many different systems that we can use. So just by taking a look at this, there is a lot of different stuff we can use. So these are all things that data scientists around the world are using to manipulate some kind of data that they have available to them. We clearly do not need nearly this much. However, we do need a few of them. So in order to execute everything we do in our curriculum, let's go take a look. So just do the first one. Let's first start with Pi Audio. So just as step 20 says, we're going to type Pi Audio into the search bar on the right. We're going to look for the search results and then click Apply at the bottom. So as you can see, we have a screenshot right here. So we're going to type it into this search box and we're going to see what comes up. So let's do it. So we're going to search packages, Pi Audio, and there it is. So here is one of the packages that we want to use. So this, as you can see here, this is going to help us with some of the different kinds of sound applications that we want to do. So actually within our Jupyter Notebooks curriculum that comes with NeuroMaker BCI, we are going to be playing around with some sound waves. And that's going to be a great way to transition into the brainwave applications that we want to do. So we found that we have that right there. So all we're going to do is click it, and let's just double check here, and then we're going to click Apply at the bottom. So let's do this exactly how the instructions say. So we're going to click, and as you can see, Apply is here, and this pop-up window is going to come up, and once again, to follow this step by step, we are going to click Apply once again. So let's go ahead and do that. So as you can see, this is going to install the package. So then what's going to be really interesting is when you go back to your environment which you created for NeuroMaker, you are going to be able to see all of the installed packages, and one of those will include Pi Audio. So let's look at the installed packages that we have here. We're going to update our index, and let's see if we can find it. So in just a moment, we're going to see all of the different installed packages, and these are all loading. Yep. So, I actually need to X this out so we can look at everything. So we're going to update that again. So as you can see here, here are all the packages that are available with our current environment. And you'll notice that we had a few of these to begin with, but now there's a new one. We now have Pi Audio. So we just downloaded that, and that's all it takes to install a new package. So what we need to do next is just go through the rest of these packages that we need to install. So let's take a look at this. So as you can see, the instructions are really clear. So this first package has been installed, so we can follow the exact same steps to install all the remaining packages on this page. If there's no issues, let's skip to step 26. If we encounter any issues, we're going to go to the next step to find an alternative way to install this. So let's go ahead and keep putting these together. So as you can see, we just downloaded Pi Audio. So now let's do matplotlib. So we're going to type that in and do the exact same thing. So first we're going to go to all, right? So we're going to update index. So once again, this is going to load every single available package that we have available within Anaconda. So we're going to let that load. And while we do, let's double check what we just said. So that's matplotlib. So let's go ahead and type that in there, matplotlib. So what this is going to do, and as you can see, a bunch of these different things come up, but we want to find this one right here. So this is going to give us some really powerful data science tools. So we're going to go ahead and install this one just like we did with the last. So let's put it in there. So within this package, all of these other packages are going to come in there too. And that's exactly what we want. So let's hit apply. And in just a moment, we will have that new package downloaded into our environment. And it's coming along. As you can see here, it's downloading. So now we have the next one. So as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these left once we finish this next one. Perfect. So now that that's installed, awesome. So to install our next one, all we have to do is just clear that search query, keep this all here, and let's do our next one. So our next one is SciPy. So let's install SciPy. Perfect. So we got that right there. And as the description says, this is a scientific library for Python. So this is going to give us some interesting ways that we can connect some of the scientific concepts that we're going to learn in our curriculum into our code. So we're going to go ahead and install that. And that is coming right along. So just like our last package happened, we're going to install this one the same way. So let's let that operate for just a bit. Then from there, we're going to have our pandas package installed. And just in case you're curious on what these different commands in these parentheses mean, that is if you want to install these things within the Anaconda prompt. So just in case you want to install these manually through the command line within Anaconda, you can do that as well. However, since we can find all of this within our Anaconda environment here, we can do this in a much easier format. So perfect. So now that library is downloaded. So let's see what our next one is. Right, so we need pandas. So once again, another very handy data science tool. And let's go find it. Perfect. So here's pandas. So this is going to give us as you can see here, this is all about data structure. So we're going to use this when we are building our plots and some other of our different data science applications. So we're going to hit apply and download that. So once again, we're going to put this one together. It's just going to take a minute and we will have that all set. And it is installing right away. And just in case anyone is interested in learning more, so you're going to hear me say this again and again and again. This is the exact same kind of tool that scientists use every day for their own data science needs. So there's a learning community, there's learning pages. There's a community built around this. If anyone wants to go above the call of duty to learn more about how you can work with data science for other cool things, there's a lot of free tools that you can get command of here. So perfect, we got pandas all set. Now we're going to do MNE. Let's go ahead and type that in. So let's see, we have all. So we're going to update our index. Let's see if that one's coming up here. So perfect. So here is an example of one of the packages that's not coming through here. So let's see how else we can download this. There's actually another way that we can do that, but you know what? We're actually going to save that for just a minute. So I'm going to put a placeholder on this one, and we're going to come back to that, and I'll show you another way that you can put it in there. So we're going to move ahead. So let's see if we can find NumPy. I wonder if some people actually call it NumPy. I feel like I'm always tempted to say that, but I do not believe that is the correct way to say it. Oh, so look at that. We already have it installed. So that's awesome. So this is going to allow us to, if we're using some of our array data structures, we're going to be able to work those into some of the other things that we want to do with our data science in the future. So that one's already in there. Now let's go to CyclePy, install that. So once again, if you see this green check mark next to the package, that means you already have it. So we do not need to worry about this one. I'm just going to double check with the name of this, CyclePy. Did I spell that right? I did not spell that right. CyclePy. Let me double check again. All right. I'm going to update the index one more time to see if it comes in. And just in case this wasn't clear in the beginning, you are going to need to have internet access to download all these things. But once you have them inside of your environment here, you are not going to need to have an active internet connection. So you can actually do this without an internet actively working on your device. So this is actually a good learning experience. So if you remember, our MNE we couldn't find and our CyclePy we couldn't find. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to use our Anaconda prompt. So this is not a big deal. So this is actually a way that we can manually put in these different packages into our virtual environment. So let's go ahead and do that. So just as the instructions say, we're going to go into our Anaconda prompt. So as you can see, it just comes in here, but if you want to find it manually, you can actually type in Anaconda prompt, and that will come up right here. So this is going to give us the command bar. This might look imposing for some people who have never worked with it before, but it is actually quite easy to use, and we have our different code all set for you right now. So let's go ahead and do that. So as you can see, our step 24 is telling us we first need to activate our environment. So let's go ahead and do that. So if you remember, we named our environment NeuroMaker, right here. So we're going to need to activate that first. So we're going to type in activate and then NeuroMaker, and we're going to let that run. And as you can see, this in parentheses right here has changed to NeuroMaker. So we now know that we are working within this environment. So that is a good sign. So we're going to follow along our instructions here. So now you can see, just to install these packages, it's as easy as just typing in what is inside of those parentheses. So we're going to go back. Now remember, we could not find MNE, so all we need to type in is pip install MNE. So let's go ahead and do that and see what happens. Pip install MNE. We're going to type that in. So as you can see, by running this command, the Anaconda prompt is able to find this package. So it just installed it right there. It's giving us some reports, and we can see that our package has been successfully installed. So it's not quite as UI pretty as our Navigator, but this is another way that we can download these. So once again, if you want to do this completely through the Anaconda prompt, you can actually do that with all of these different commands. Just make sure that you run this specific code inside of the parentheses. So that's nice and easy. So you're able to install MNE. Now let's do CyclePy. So we're going to do pip install CyclePy. So we're going to run that. And once again, just like with our last package, the prompt was able to find this. So it's now downloading it from where it exists online. And once it is completely downloaded, we will be able to see that successfully installed prompt come up. So this should only take another minute, and we should be just about ready to go. So as you can see, all of these different packages come within that. So this is going to give us a lot of tools that we can use. So if this looks imposing, do not worry. We are only going to use a small segment of what's possible here, and all of the code that you're going to need to do the activities that we're going to have within our curriculum are actually going to be pre-written for you. So we don't expect anybody to write out some of the more complicated pieces of this neuroscience code by themselves. So we'll make sure that you have all kinds of tutorials and walkthroughs on how to get everything set up. So all of the different packages that we need have now been installed. So if we go back to our setup guide, you can see that we wanted to make sure that all of these packages were ready to go. So we now, just moments ago, we used the Anaconda prompt to set up our MNE and our CyclePy, but all the other ones we were able to find either already pre-installed within Anaconda or by that simple search within the Anaconda Navigator. So we are all set with our packages. So now all we need to do next is to install our Jupyter Notebook. So let's go ahead and do that. So we originally started off here, right? So we were looking at all of our different installed packages. So as you can see here, all of the packages that we need are installed and ready to work with. They'll all be inside of this. So let's go back to home And we are going to be using Jupyter Notebooks, which I've just described a few times to everybody. So all we need to do is just click install. And we're going to make sure we're following every step completely the way our guide says. So we're going to find Jupyter Notebooks and install that. Now let us go ahead and see the progress there. So once this is installed, we are going to have the program that we need to get this going. So I'm going to go ahead and let this run. Okay, so once you have installed Jupyter Notebooks, you're going to be able to see that there is now a launch button under this icon. So these are the ones you can still see there's an install. However, for what we need is already installed here. So I'm just going to click back to that so we can see what that looks like. And to launch Jupyter Notebooks, all we need to do is just click launch right here. And that is going to load. And here we go. So now Jupyter Notebooks is up and running. And here we can see Jupyter. So this is going to be where we're going to operate most of our classes. So this is going to be awesome. And what I'm going to do is just upload one of these so you can see what it looks like when we want to bring in a new class. So on our NeuroMaker BCI classroom portal here, we are going to see all of the different kinds of programs that we need. So this particular setup guide is going to give you one specific activity that you can use. However, what we are going to do is start with a simple one. So let's go back over to our classroom and go to our first module. As you can see, we have a Jupyter Notebook lesson here. So all we need to do to make that work within our system is to take this. This is going to give us a file that we can download. So we're going to download it here. And that when now we have it downloaded onto our system. So as you can see from the instructions, we just need to download this and then open it up in Jupyter. So I'm actually going to let's see if I can get that. I actually can't, not with my system here. There's actually a recording device I have open that's blocking my download page. And as you can see, we can't open this directly, so we need to bring it directly into our folder. So the easy way to do that is we're just going to click upload. And it's going to be in our downloads folder. So I'm going to open this here. And now we can rename this whatever we like. I like to keep these consistent with our lessons. So if we go back to our portal, you can see that this is for Module 3, Lesson 1. So I'm going to rename this Module 3, Lesson 1. You are free to name it whatever works for you. And now you can see this is uploaded into our Jupyter Notebooks interface. So if we click on this, this is going to open up our program. So everything that we are going to do that is integrated within our NeuroMaker BCI curriculum is going to be inside Jupyter Notebooks. And now you have everything you need to make this work. So I am actually going to stop here. If you can get to this stage, this means that you can set up your Jupyter Notebooks correctly and that you have all the packages you need to complete our curriculum. And we're going to save a walkthrough of all these different lessons for another time. So thank you for working with me here today. If you've gotten this far, you are ready to jump into our lessons and work within the rest of our curriculum. So I hope you have a good experience, and it was a pleasure to work with you all. So I hope to talk to you soon, and have a great class.